Hello. So,
Funny.
and with us we have a fabulous guest that I actually kidnapped from Ascension Talk Radio last week, and I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of Lisa's bio. Um, Always having this intuition that would prove itself true and an innate ability to heal. Little did Lisa know that of the origin raised in the small town of Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Lisa was able to grow up in a secure and close community. She was first introduced to the concept of metaphysics by her father, who was fairly young. The powers of natural healing and spirituality fascinated her, and it seems like magic, she excitedly states. And she knew that from the moment when the people search for their whole lives for the purpose, she knew her purpose. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. Like I said, I kidnapped you from Ascension Talk Radio.
I don't feel kidnapped. I don't really at all.
No, see, you're kind of like the family now, I think.
Gosh, that was close.
You're kind of right in our fabric of the network.
Well, cool. I like that.
Well, yeah. See, we kind of weave things in and out here. But I wanted to bring you back onto the show because I loved your practical approach to things, and we kind of got into kind of a serious discussion last time about healing and forgiveness and how you deal with difficult people. And
right.
You touched so many nerves in that show. It was incredible. I mean, there were so many of us that were going through or had gone through that similar situation, and you were able to strike a nerve with every single one of us. And when we were done with that interview, we kind of all gathered at the end of it, and it was like, everything made sense. And I think at that point, we were able to just let it all go. That we were able to just drop it all away and move on with what we needed to move on with and just basically ignore everything that had happened.
That's great. That's perfect.
So I have to thank you for that.
You're welcome. It was a great conversation, and I think that it's so important. And when you have released all of that, it lightens you so much. You just feel like the world has been lifted off your shoulders, and it's just a great way to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it really did, and it really solidified a lot of the things that I had already been. We had talked about the things that you role play in your head. And role-playing in your head does not work. And it takes people a long time to realize that. When you role-play in your head, you always come out the victim. And
oh, absolutely.
You don't need to be a victim in anything unless you allow yourself to do so.
Yep, you have to give permission to anybody. You have to give permission for anyone to make you feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's good or bad, it's up to you.
Absolutely. And another thing that I learned in talking about that discussion is in order to be able to forgive others, and we're going to actually go into a different type of conversation, but I wanted to give you kudos for this. In order for you to move forward and allow the forgiveness of others, you have to first forgive yourself.
Right.
Which I think is
I think
so
I wrote
hard
that.
to be
I think
able
I
to
wrote
do.
that in my book. That I don't know, but yeah, I think that's absolutely true, because we have to first recognize the fault that we find in others and ourselves, because we all have it. It's there in all of us.
Yeah. And I think what's great too. Yeah, I mean,
if we can't forgive ourselves, how can we forgive anybody else? I mean, that really is loving yourself. You have to love yourself to be able to really love someone else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, and that's kind of the direction that I wanted to go in, because I know that's kind of where we ended in the segments with Ryan and Ascension Talk. How does one go into those steps of forgiving themselves, to acknowledging what happened, take responsibility for what happened? Whether you're actually right or wrong, you still do need to take some responsibility for the actions, correct?
Yeah, and that's where it gets complicated for people, because we talked. I think we said a lot that the words "I'm sorry," how important "I'm sorry" are, and if there's a disagreement, if there's an argument, if something happens between two people are at fault. Both people are at fault because, even though one person may have initiated whatever, it's still the other person participated, and that makes an apology necessary on both. Saying I'm sorry, like we discussed on Ascension, is very difficult. It's just not something that people can easily do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, we have to take the responsibility for our part, our part in whatever happened. And it doesn't make us bad people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that we're bad because we're a horrible person because we hurt someone. I don't intentionally, most of us at least, don't intentionally set out to hurt someone.
Right.
Of course, there are exceptions to that, but I think that's unusual. And I think even though, and hindsight being what it is, you look back and you think, wow, I reacted completely, uncharacteristically of myself, or I reacted appropriately, or whatever. In the moment, you weren't being a bad person. It was just how you were feeling.
Right.
You were just expressing what you were feeling at the moment. So looking back, you can be like, ugh, in a different frame, at a different point. How can I have to understand that I'm human, and that's how I was feeling at that moment, and so I said what I said or did what I did, and I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry,
Right.
and then apologizing to yourself too. Apologizing to yourself just means that you're not really saying I'm sorry, Lisa, that you did, but you're basically for yourself saying I'm a human being. I reacted like I did because I'm human, and because I have emotions, and because I'm not a potted plant. I feel things.
Mm-hmm.
So I reacted the way I did, and it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it, but I'm going to forgive myself.
Right.
And I'm going to let go of it. It's worse than beating yourself up about something. I mean, how many times do we do that? I do it to myself sometimes, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Because you sit there and you think, why did I say that? Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
Absolutely.
At the moment you do or say something, and then you beat yourself up about it for a week or a year.
Or a year, exactly.
Or 10 years, whatever. And you keep playing it back in your mind and thinking, wow, I really should have handled that differently. Just let it go,
Let it go.
You made a mistake. Let it go. It's okay. You're allowed to make mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. Looking at your whole life, all the things you did that were maybe not perfect, kind of created who you are today, and you have to be proud of who you are today.
Absolutely.
So even with your mistakes, that's okay. I mean, your mistakes, the things you did wrong, the things you have to forgive yourself for, are also the things that built your personality, your character, and who you are.
Absolutely. And I think people, too, have to realize that when you get to that point where you can actually, say if there's someone specific that you're wanting to apologize to, once you get the courage, because there's a fear of rejection that goes along with that.
Absolutely.
As long as you can go to that person, whether it be, hopefully in person, but whether it be a phone call, whether it be a note, whether it be something, and that rejection actually comes, at least you've made that attempt. And that right there is a way that you can start forgiving yourself. Right.
The attempt. And you know what? And sometimes I think writing the letter, or writing the note, you think apologizing in person is the way to go. I think sometimes writing it, sending a note, or sending an email, and not putting the other party on the spot,
yep,
is kind of a better way to go. It's a more sensitive way to go, because you're then giving them time to process.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving them time to think, all right, you might be in a state of anger. You don't know where they're at with the conflict that happened. So when you send that note saying, I am taking responsibility, I am sorry for my part in this, I shouldn't have said this or that, I shouldn't have done that or this, and you're taking that responsibility, then that other person has a little bit of time to process what it is that you process what happened, and then they can respond in kind. It's like if you do it in person, if you do it on the spot, and I'm not saying, and sometimes, the best thing to do is do it right away.
Right.
But sometimes, when somebody apologizes to you, you're like, I'm not ready for an apology.
Yeah.
I'm still angry, and then that just creates more, the rejection of them not accepting your apology. You know what I mean? And so then it just creates more drama and more hard feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the note. I like the idea of the email. I like the idea of taking the time to put it in writing. Putting something in writing is forever.
Right.
And, that it's something that's always there. And I think it's a kind way, a gentle way to approach something, especially if it was a very emotional thing. If there were a lot of emotions involved.
Absolutely.
And a lot of hurt.
Absolutely. And they have to look at, too, that when you make that apology, whichever form you make it in, if you don't get a response back right away, it's okay. If you never get a response
That's
back,
right.
it's okay.
That's right. And that's where the problem lies, though, is you've done your part.
Right.
You've done what you need to do. You can now let go and forgive yourself. But you can't make that other person forgive you. You can't make that other person get over it.
Mm-hmm.
You can only reach out, do your part, and then forgive yourself. And then, let that person deal with their part in it. Some people just like being a victim, and they're always going to want to be in that victim role.
Right.
And so if you're dealing with someone like that, if you're dealing with somebody who just, likes the drama in their lives, likes to feel angry, they feed off of that, then, that's their problem. And I'm not saying that meanly. I'm saying that's truly their problem to deal with.
Yeah.
And their path to hopefully walk down and figure out that they're making a mistake by not letting go of things.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can't all be enlightened. We can't all, we can't make each other feel things. We can't make each other get over things.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And you have to think, too, that when you're in that kind of a situation where you're apologizing, both parties are feeling victimized. And I don't think people realize or think of that either, that there's a victim on both sides that need nurturing. And whether it be from the other party or from outside that circle, it still has to be done. There has to be a healing going on. There has to be a closure that goes on with it. And whether it's given by each other or somebody else, it still has to take place before the healing actually works.
I agree. I think that's very true. There are different levels to to the whole process, and that's one of them, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this topic. Okay.
I know. Well, because you know what? You know why? I think when we talked about it the other night, it affected all of us, and we were all thinking about it from our own perspectives and our own stuff that's going on in our personal lives, or even in our professional lives.
Mm-hmm.
But it affects absolutely everyone, and people don't understand how much energy it takes to be mad at someone.
Right.
How much energy it takes to be angry and to hold on to that state of unforgiveness. And those are the things that make us more like that sick. We're
Mm-hmm.
putting so much energy into being angry and being upset with people and feeling victimized,
Right.
that we don't take the time. We're not allowing our bodies to have that energy, use that energy to prevent illness, to prevent us from getting sick.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a cold, which I happen to be fighting off right now, as well as Bell, or it's something as serious as cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Or if our energy, our bodies can't fight as hard for us if we're putting our resources into something negative and something really not worth,
Right.
not worth it to us. It's certainly not for our best interest.
Absolutely. And two, when you get into that point where you are so angry with a person or a situation, people don't realize that you resonate that anger into your outer circle. And it gets to the point where you're so enveloped in that anger or in that situation that is influencing your behavior with other people.
Well, and that's the problem when you get into something when it's you're